Hey gamers, welcome to the Part-Time Gamers Club where we game part-time but support gaming all the time. For those of you tuning back in, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the crew. I'm Gio. Alongside me is Gerard and Mike. And on today's podcast, we're going to be discussing video game prices and how you guys feel. So Gerard, take it away, man.
All right, good. I have been gifted the conch. Uh, so basically, I don't know. If any gamer has like looked around at pricing, realized that there's been a slow increase of video game prices out of the box, uh, going up from at least about the last 5 years, last six
Mm-hmm.
years. I think the first games that started coming out around $70 were like after COVID, like 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, people have been saying this has been a long time coming. The industry standard for $60 games is no longer feasible, and to an extent that makes sense, but not for the justification that the video game industry has been giving. Just recently, the CEO of Borderlands 4, Randy, has entered a tweet slash X message about how he used to be able to get an $80 game, but more importantly, in that tweet, he also mentioned you're not a real fan unless you pay for the $80 of the game. And the argument kind of is like the basis of this. It's like, is video games increase in price something that we should accept, something we should worry about, or should it have not happened at all? And I would like to hear both your guys' opinions because video game pricing has been like not even like a concern for gamers for a very long time, other than like, hey, can I afford this game? But it's never been like, is this game too pricey? So what are you guys' thoughts?
I feel right now the biggest concern with the pricing and I think why gamers are pushing back the way they are. First off, yes, you got inflation taking off the way it has been, as well as the fact that we don't trust the value in the games that the AAA companies are pushing out. You understand? Like, we're not getting a 60 or $70 quality game right now. If you think about how broken a lot of the games have been on release day from a lot of the major AAA companies, it doesn't even feel like you got a $60 game level quality, let alone a $70. And now you want to jump it up to 80? How much more broken is my game going to be? So I think that's pretty much where a lot of the backlash stems from. And just the fact that, as well as, hey, why are you charging this much more to give us worse games? You're telling us, oh, you're doing this big budget, but the budget is not matching the quality. So something's got to give here. Either you start making cheaper games with better quality and accept the fact that you're gonna have to sell it for us to us for less, or you just continue to go down this path that's not a good one right now for the AAA companies.
Uh, it's running a dangerous line because, yes, inflation is going up. Everything is going up in price. We all feel it. We all know it. So that's probably part of the backlash. And then on top of that, the games are not matching its value. So I think a lot of things are playing a role into this. Maybe the prices going up because of it's the time, resources to be making the game, whatever, how that goes. I think a lot of things plays a role. I think $80 games. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm surprised just given the nature of the economy, but it is a little too steep to buy a game, and then the game is just not worth playing because there's a lot of errors, there's a lot of glitches, or there's just g- the same crap you played I don't know, last year. I don't know. It
I
is
think
worrisome. I think it's going down a oddly weird way, but like I don't know, just I think it's probably the standard nowadays is $80.
well, that's what they're looking to make it. It's still
Yeah,
70,
the
but
standard is 70 right now.
That
Yeah, and to be fair, like Gio and I had this conversation before, but like there are some games that we would pay $80 for, but like I wouldn't pay $80 for every game. Like I would understand the mainstream games or games that should have like very in depth, like developments or things like that. Because in the back of my mind, I go like, what would I spend $80 on? And it was like, it depends on how long I would play the game. An MMO, depending on how good it is, I'd spend $80. Uh, but am I also playing subscription? Do I need to buy stuff or like things like that? Or will they be expansion packs? Like I'm not gonna spend $80 per expansion, things like that. So those are like questions that come into buying any game, especially since like, oh, and that's like really the main like backlash that raising the video game prices are is like one, yes, it's like kind of expensive with inflation or everything like that. Just like you can't blame inflation for $80 because everything is being inflated. So that's not a good thing to describe. But and you mentioned already the second is like, oh, there is like some people who the games that are coming out are not representative of their price tag. Like $80 for certain of these games is not good because it's just not giving us $80 worth of games. But my third thing, and the most importantly, what I think of is that they somehow justify this as we should be able to pay these prices because that is what they have to be. Like they're justifying these $80 prices by either saying we're not real gamers, we're not real fans, or like the quality, or excuse me, not the quality. The $80 worth of these games is based on like what they see and what they value and how much money they put into this and everything like that. And if we don't like the games, they blame us for it. In the end, I was going to say, in the end, these prices should be reflective on quality of work, not about the budget. The budget and the price of the game are two different things, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you can't price based on, the quality. It's always going to be based on the budget and how much they can return on the bottom line. It's just they're playing a dangerous game because, when you higher prices will just means less customers or less buyers. While, some games may take a risk and go buy, sell at a cheaper, well, not cheaper, but at a lower price point, and then probably get more. Like, I mean, we bought Claire, and that's like what, $50,
Mm-hmm.
right? $50,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like
and
45,
it's
50.
and
Yeah,
it's.
that's an $80 value game.
But that's an $80 value game. Like,
I would agree because I love the game.
yeah,
But
and
Put a
that's
lot of time into it.
but here's the thing too, Mike. Just to iterate, go back to what you were saying before. It the budget they have control of though. They decide how much they want to spend to make on that game. So technically, you're impacting the pricing because you're not choosing to lower your budget. You don't have to inflate it to these high budgets. Like so, Borderlands 3 technically it was a good game or successful in a sense, but it was a letdown to a lot of the fan base, and it didn't give them the same return that they were expecting. That was off a $150 million budget. They're saying Borderlands 4 is 300 million. Why did you double it? How was
Well,
150
because
million? But it wasn't about graphics. It wasn't about gameplay, Mike. The biggest criticism about the game was the writing and the storytelling. That was the big. So you needed 150 million for what? How much these writers cost? Did you get some really good ones? Like, because for that much, you
maybe,
better have.
hey,
look,
You better
I,
have Steven Spielberg and his crew with him.
I first off, he's a director. Second off,
But I'm saying whoever gets to write his movies, because he always has a lot of bangers.
but I was gonna say I would be all for writers getting $150 million, but I would also say like yeah, like Gio's right. Like you control the budget. It is mostly the budget that and the increase of budget is to make games faster. That's the ultimate downline. They want to make a game faster, and that is the problem with video games. And that's like the same problem with most entertainment medias, less so like movies or excuse me, not movies, like books and
Movies
things like.
just being
But
rushed too.
movies are being rushed as well. But like movies, and this is like me going like pretty far. Movies usually don't take more than 2 years to make. I say usually,
Yeah, yeah.
but like
Unless you're doing an Avatar.
yeah, like anything with heavy CGI or animations that makes sense to me. Like anime movies, like the Miyazaki movies or Ghibli
Yeah, yeah.
studio movies, things like that. Those make sense to me that they take so long because you're drawing everything. But that goes to show like movies or video games is the only media that gamers can understand if a game takes like half a decade or a decade to make. Like 10 years for like in video game progress that it's either video game hell is what we call it or just a long project passion project. Gamers are willing to wait, and that's a good example of like Elden Ring or
Claire
like
Obscur.
Claire Obscure was a 7 year project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and that is the one thing that does not translate to any other industry. No other industry is willing, like the audience is willing to wait that long, and that is a problem when you are trying to consider profits on a quarter by quarter basis, because quarter by quarter you need to have some kind of steady income to show your investors, and you need to have growth spikes in order to show that your company is growing. If you don't have a video game like being coming out within 2 years, that is a bad thing on your portfolio. But video gamers don't have that same idea or that those same kind of thoughts the same as investors do. Investors see a bottom line and profit and growth. Gamers only care about quality of the games, the time to fix things that are broken in the game, and how much the game costs. Those are the three things that we really care about. So you're telling me that you can't balance these two things? You can't balance investors and gamers? That's because they're in direct opposite of each other. And that's like the bottom line is that you need to have upper management to understand this. And I mentioned this before. Upper management is usually brought outside of this industry, and that's not going to work in the gaming industry because this industry is just a different beast because of that.
Well, this is what happens though when you make your company public. Once you join the stock market, that's it. You cater to your investors rather than to your consumers. And if you notice, that's the big thing right now going on in gaming. They're catering to their investors while also trying to be activists, which is hurting a lot of them at the same time. But who's losing out the most is us because we're not getting the quality that we expect from them. A lot of these titles, a lot of these major franchises have been very disappointing lately. I mean, you think about Final Fantasy, the seven trilogy, that hasn't lived up to the expectations that it should have.
Only the second one. The first one was good.
It
See,
was good, but the sales numbers weren't there, Gerard, is what I'm saying. It wasn't selling like a successful Final Fantasy game pre 14. You know what I mean? 14 is an MMO, so that probably sold well. But what I'm saying is the regular single player games have not sold the same way as they did before. From 13 prior, all those games have sold better than the recent ones by far.
I wouldn't even count 13 as much. Like from 2 and onward is when the decline started to go. Like actually, in my opinion, Final Fantasy has been in a strut since 12. Like since 12 onward.
12, but 13 was a bounce back from 12. 13 was
13
way better
one.
sales.
13
Yeah,
1
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah,
bounce
yeah, yeah.
back.
Okay.
13-2 was okay, and 13-3 was like severely let down.
No,
So it's like it's
I got you. But what I'm saying is, you got them. You got Dragon Age to Veilguard, right? Dragon Age before Veilguard, that's a big time franchise that has released bangers, and had Game of the Years.
I was about to say
So,
Dragon Age is hit or miss every now and then.
mm,
Like,
mhm,
but yeah, Veilguard just did not do the many. I would
mm,
personally would consider it the worst of all the Dragon Age games.
yeah. And then you got what's the other one? Assassin's Creed. They've been on a downhill spiral as well.
Ubisoft has been on a downhill for years, but that's
Yeah,
besides
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
point.
But I'm saying they destroyed they're destroying their main franchise. You know what I mean? So it, it's this is the problem though, and all these games they're public. Those publishing companies and they're public, so they're trying to make this.
It's a hard balance,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
know, I know, I
I
get it.
you feel the lean towards one side because you gotta make your investors happy because they're putting
Hmm.
money into you. But at the same time, like there can be some pushback that they can ex, you know explain or at least give them a vision of what the long term um rewards can be if you were to kind of or wait things out a little bit more. I mean, it works both ways.
yeah,
We can always say, "Oh, we blame the investor," but no, either you're just not explaining
Hmm.
or explaining a vision to them, but you're just making them like almost like a instant gratification. Hey, we'll put our game out every 2 years or every year quickly. That's not gonna work because, like you said, the we're gonna be taking a hit. Like this game is, but then they'll start noticing it through the fans when they see us not buying their games anymore.
and the
They
That hasn't
stocks
see
drop.
stopped them.
The stocks drop.
and
Yeah, it has. And Ubisoft is like the example of that. Their stocks
They're
drop.
bleeding. What?
Exactly.
So it's
it,
Square Enix. Square Enix stocks have dropped as well. I don't know if EA suffered a little bit. They might have because I think they were also part of
EA
what's the
suffers
other
all
game
the
they were.
time.
Yeah.
They were Star Wars not Star Wars Outlaws. Excuse me. The Fallen Jedi
Frontier?
Order. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they had what was the one recently? There was one recent. I can't remember.
but
But
like, I
mhm.
I was gonna say like it's weird because having a public company, or excuse me, going public is a decision that should not be taken lightly, but it is a step you need to take in order to make more I don't want to say value, but more quality games. Because you can't consist on profits of video games because video games by themselves is a volatile industry. You don't know what's going to be a hit until it's out. And indie companies can like successfully live off of a video game hit, but majority of the times they're just trying to produce game after game after game to get either a hit or to make a game that will have enough attention that they can get investors and go public. Because that's the goal of like majority of these video companies is to find investors and to get
Yeah.
enough money to pay for their like long projects. And that's just like not possible when you are trying to make money. It's like your main goal for your company is to make money. And that is not what your goal is. Your goal should be make a company that pays you for doing what you love. That because video games and in my opinion, movies, any creative outlet where you can make something and that has no like purpose, no functionality besides like being entertainment, that is something that is not necessary, and to get paid for it should be a reward. But when you are not one being underpaid for it, two having to work long hours for it, and three not putting out quality work,
Hmm.
you are being tortured at that point. You are being
Yeah.
like it is in my opinion the equivalent of a prison, but the prison like the warden is capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what you got going on these days, man. And I mean, I'm not blaming the investors in the sense that they're not the ones telling these game companies to push these agendas and narratives. The game
They
companies
could
are
be.
trying to.
They could be. We
y-
don't know.
Oh, that's true too. That's true. You're right.
But
You're right.
I
You're right.
I I,
I
I
didn't think of that. There
yeah,
could be
and
some political influence and little, hey, I'll put
uh,
this little extra dollar in your pocket if you
yeah, the extra dollar is like $1 million. The extra $1 million put this political agenda in your game and you can I'll
Yeah.
give you $1 million. And like fuck it, it's $1 million, right? But like in the end, investors have only what they say. They only have their money. And it is up to a company, like as a whole, and especially the CEO, the CFO, all of them.
Mhm.
It is up to them to decide, hey, we need to draw a line. At some point, money is not worth it if it makes the game worse.
That's what I was gonna say to you. Like that's why I said the gaming companies cater to the investors because at what point do you just let an investors don't ask for their money? Don't take it. Just let if they want to drop out because you won't put that in your game, then let them drop out. From what I see and how I feel is that you can see which gaming companies already sold their soul and their integrity. That's how I look at it.
That's all of them. All of them sell their souls. Even the Eastern ones like Sony and
Yeah.
Square Enix and
Nintendo.
maybe less so from software, but Nintendo doesn't have a soul. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
Okay, for the longest time,
I just go what you said. Nintendo will have a soul. And then the ones that sell the
for the very longest time, that's why I think they don't have a soul. They mainly like give to their like
Yeah,
genre to kids, but they are like the most like strict about their products, and I'm just like, motherfucker, you make Pokemon. That is a kids. I don't want to say kids game, but it's definitely a game targeting children and
I'm like, I
mostly
seen
played
Adele
by
play
children.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen a lot playing that when it first came out. Oh my god, I thought they were all kids.
yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, I was playing
Uh,
it.
Yeah, you're fucking acting like it.
but that's like, how can you? But yeah, how can you like make video games targeting audiences,
Yeah.
that targeting children, and then be like one of, if not the worst, at restricting and preventing archiving of video game history, and like really being like, and I hate to say this, the assholes of the entire gaming industry. Like, it has become like they become the icon of like the worst video game company to own IPs, because you, God forbid, if you have Mario anywhere near your properties, your intellectual properties, because you can make a game that just references Mario and that shit will get stripped out. They will sue you into oblivion every
All right.
dime you make.
You're going on a tangent about
We
Nintendo.
got the
All
Bring
right,
it back.
I'll
Bring
hold
it
it
back.
up.
Bring it
I'll
back.
hold it up. Okay.
Bring it back. If you want to stay on Nintendo, all you gotta say is they're the assholes starting this $80 bullshit.
They are. They literally are though. They are the ones that started it with Mario Kart. Mario Kart World.
World, yeah.
That's
But I
that's
would pay for it.
started it.
That's
Like-
one of the games I would pay.
But here's
$80.
my and here, yeah, no argument there. But here's the argument. Here's the thought process is, all the other companies, all they had to do is like, we'll be $70. We undercut Nintendo, and we probably get more sales because of it. No, everyone's seen Nintendo's do this. They jumped the bandwagon. If anything, this is the first, or excuse me, this is not the first time Nintendo has been the forefront or leader of anti-consumer practices.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just,
But Nintendo's only doing that with their first title games, not like
you mean their proprietary titles, the in-house one.
yeah, correct. They're not doing that with every game.
Yes.
The $80. And
Yeah.
so here's my point though, where we were talking about before. I don't know where these companies think they make $80 quality games like Nintendo. You don't make Zeldas, you don't make Marios, you don't make Mario Karts like that. If your game's not like that, don't touch $80.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, you come
I'm not
in
saying
and
Nintendo's
get
the
a
only
gamble.
company. I'm just saying, like, you're not GTA. You're not what we were saying. Well, we said Final Fantasy, but if it was turn based again, then I would pay $80 in a heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, you're naming like top given games, but like
Hmm.
these these games could just, it's a gamble at the end of the day, right? It's a gamble.
No,
They're
no,
taking
no,
a
no.
gamble. Throwing $80, why not? And then people still buy it. People are still gonna buy these games.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying.
I was gonna
We're
say,
saying they're
Mike,
just not going to get the same return on investment. But go ahead.
No,
I,
maybe not, but that's the risk that they take, risk and reward, right? You expect your game to the game that you made. You expect your game to be
They're not being rewarded.
expectations.
I was gonna say, Mike,
You don't go
it,
you don't go into the expectation. Oh, I'm just gonna throw an okay game.
yeah,
They
well,
probably digging it to get hot shit.
yeah, I was gonna say, Mike,
That's the problem. They think it's hot shit.
Mike, you said it was a gamble, right? Okay, a gamble is the assumption that I pay $80 and I get a $50 game. All right, that's the gamble. That is not what is happening. The gamble is I pay $80. My game might not work, and I paid $80. That is the equivalent. That is the equivalent of going into a casino and is like, I'm gonna spend $100 at this table. They take your money and you don't play a game. That's the equivalent. Now, back in the day, I would say, Mike, you were right. Like, it is a gamble. Like, sometimes paying or pre-ordering something. Like, a good example is Diablo 4. Like, pre-ordering that game, getting the, like, close alpha, which was a genius dark pattern game, but whatever. That's a gamble because you don't know if the game's going to be good immediately or things like that. But the more they increase it and the less, like, not less likely, the more they put out bad quality games, the less it becomes a gamble and more that it becomes a scam. And we are getting closer and closer to, like, is this a scam? Is this just a multi-level marketing scheme? Because, like, I'm paying for games that are costing $80-$70, right? But they feel like they're $40-$50 worth of games. Cause, like, you're right.
Like half-finished games.
Yeah, you're right. Like,
Okay.
they might think it's a hot shit, right? Dragon Age Railguard is the example, right? Dragon Age Railguard might be hot shit, all right? But you're telling me that the Ubisoft developing Assassin's Creed Shadows thought that was a hot game? Like,
Yeah, they did. They believed in it.
the animations weren't finished. The game quality or the game, like, graphics wasn't even 4K. It was like 1080p. Like, it looked bad as well as felt bad, and you're telling me they actually expected the game to be good?
I mean, if you see patterns, then see patterns of the same behavior, same thing. I mean, then yeah, don't buy the game. they'll see in the bottom line. But
Yeah.
I still think people are still gonna buy the game.
No.
We're not saying we're not
That's a good
disputing
sign.
that. We're just saying you're not gonna get that return of investment when you're catering to this small niche group. And
Look,
a lot of these games,
Maybe it's enough for them. I don't know.
you don't know what's going on clearly because it has not been.
Okay, then they'll see. Eventually, we'll see the return on investment.
for Ubisoft, yes.
Yeah.
Ubisoft may be the most wild card because they had to create a shell company with Tencent in order to be able to make successful franchises.
survive.
Yes,
To
but
survive.
but that is to say that, like, some companies are getting away with murder, and some of them are just drowning. Like, a good example is, like, Square Enix. That's, like, they are not putting out bad content, but, like, in my honest opinion, and I could be like, I'm not gonna white knight Square Enix, but I feel like they are a consequence, or not a consequence. They're a bystander and, like, literally just, like, a victim of the current game industry. Because if they're in a rut right now, putting out good quality games, but, like, that doesn't mean they're a bad video game company. They're just having, like, not, like, mediocre success with all their games. And they're just having to increase prices majority of the time because the industry around them is increasing their prices. So it feels like they're getting more critique for doing the exact same amount of work they were doing already. And there are other companies, I'm not going to name Ubisoft, but this is the thing that came to mind. Other companies like EA and Activision and Blizzard who have been putting out bad content with, like, overpriced monetization and just drowning all their consumers in, like, advertisements and dark patterns, and they're barely making it by with these scammy kind of monetizations. But in the end, they lose a whole bunch of credit. They've like been disappointing the gamers for years at this point, and like they're coming out. I don't want to say scot clean, but they're still like putting out profits, and it goes to show like even when you are sticking by the book, like Square Enix, you're gonna get hit by this like side eyes and glances and things like that. When the ones that are like truly benefiting from this industry's dark practices and like anti-consumerism, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck because they're making bank because they are the ones that actively are pursuing this. So like it becomes like if you are not the evil, you will perish, and if you are the evil, you'll be receiving enough money to get by. And that's what is kind of currently happening.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, I think with the Square Enix thing, though, since you mentioned it, I think that's also just creative decisions that they've made kind of have hurt them. They've made some poor decisions, with the direction of the game and, the mechanics. Like, a lot of people were, from my understanding, when I was listening to one of the content creators, a lot of the fans were expecting basically just a remastered version of Final Fantasy VII,
Yeah,
and they got an entire remake.
Yeah.
That's not what they initially wanted, and that's part of what's hurt the performance of the sales of Final Fantasy VII's remake. So I get you on the other stuff with Square Enix. I don't think they're purposely trying to screw over games. I believe they're putting out finished product. I just feel like another thing they kind of hurt them too was that whole Devil May Cry approach that they did with 16. A lot of people were turned off by that.
They did it with 15 as well, and 15 was well received.
Yeah. No. But I'm just saying, it's just some of the creative decisions. I think there's been to hurt them, but I don't think their games are not worth the money per se. If it's a good game, it's a good game.
And the last thing I'll say, and this is just a rhetorical question, but in my opinion, Square Enix made a mistake. Do you think they should be punished for making a mistake rather than being a shitty game company that is anti-consumerist? Because in the end, you're right. They made a decision, a bad decision, a poor decision. But again, it's a game direction, not a Game Pass, not a loot boxes, not a subscription service.
Which
I'm talking about Square Enix. Square Enix. They made a mistake, right? And they're receiving backlash, sure, and they're like bleeding out money. They made a mistake. But is it worth justifying and crucifying them for making a mistake more than companies who are making live service games that are broken, that are adding dark patterns to their games, that are clearly not putting out content or allowing players to actually pertain in their company? And I'm just like, what I'm saying is Square Enix got the short end of the stick. They made a mistake at the worst possible time. And that's why I consider them a victim.
No, I got you in what you're saying on that,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying they've made some poor decisions that put them in the position they're in as well, and it was the creative direction with some of the games. So, and one part I understand what you're saying, where that part of it is like 50% of it is they're a victim, but 50% it is you put yourself in that position too at the same time. You know what I mean? Inadvertently, but you did.
Yeah. All right, that's all for me. Do you guys have anything last to say?
Just tell us what you guys think is worth $80.
Yeah, Mike.
Which games?
Claire 33 is worth.
Yeah, the one that's $45, guys.
I'd overpay for that game.
$80.
I'd overpay for that game. I'd pay $70, $80. I'd pay $80 if they give me a DLC. $70 is where it's at right now.
Yeah, sure.
If you think it's worth the money, go ahead and buy it. As long as you have the funds. That's the last thing I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth it. Everybody has their views. If you think it's worth it, that's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you leave a like and comment down below. on your thoughts of the pricing in the gaming industry. And to answer, or I want to put out a question. Have you ever bought a game for more than you thought you should have paid for it? The actual sale price. Yeah. Let us know down in the comments down below. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.